Welcome to Flirtations, where we explore the fascinating world of love, flirting, dating, and even relationships. Well, today we're taking a regal turn with an episode that's sure to captivate your imagination as we plunge into the glamorous and sometimes tumultuous love stories of Europe's most famous royal families. From fairy tale weddings to modern love struggles, the dating lives of royals are as intriguing as they are inspiring. And on the show today to have this conversation with us is Amanda Matta, who has a degree in art history, y'all, and has garnered over 2 million followers across social media covering the British royal family and notable European nobility. So I invite you now to join us as we uncover the secrets behind the crown and get a glimpse behind the curtain. Let's do this, flirties.
I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the flirt coach and a gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt.
Flirties, the topic on the show today is royal romance, insights into the dating lives of royals and the British crown. And to have this conversation with us today is Amanda Matta. Welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
I am just tickled for this conversation as we're going to be having a lot of fun today. I've got questions about the British royalty, many questions about dating and relationships and the monarchy, what's happening in Buckingham Palace. Yeah, we're going to get all into it, having tons of fun today. But first things first, share with the flirties, please, a little bit more about yourself, what you do as an expert on the royal family.
Well, I don't know about expert, but I do make videos about the royal family on TikTok. I started back in 2021 when Harry and Meghan went on Oprah for that infamous interview. And it feels like we haven't really stopped talking about or thinking about the royals since then.
No.
So on my TikTok, on my Instagram, we get into all of it. I come at it from a very intersectional angle. So we're talking about all the negative stuff, you know, the isms, the racism, the xenophobia, all of that has been affecting the royals in the past couple decades. But also, you know, the fun stuff, the gowns and the romances and the jewels and things like that. So I think there's a place to discuss all of it. I come at it from a historical perspective. I have an art history degree as well. So I just break it down for people.
Yeah. And I love that you do. I mean, I go to you for all the royalty, for all the royal news. Yes. This is where I go. This is where I get all the insider information about what's happening.
There's always a discussion to be had. So I feel like the internet was like looking for a place for those topics to like come to the forefront a couple years ago. There wasn't a place to have these conversations like there is now, hard as that is to believe. So I just try to make it accessible for people and include a lot of different angles as I'm like analyzing the royals and their history.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So how did you, has the royal family been an interest of yours for a while, like growing up, watching maybe some of the royal weddings or I'm curious.
No, you hit the nail right on the head. When I was a little girl, my mom kind of got me into it. She loved Princess Diana. She was a child of the 70s. So she like had all these books about Diana and her fashion. And she had like pictures of Prince William and Prince Harry on the same shelf as my own baby pictures. Okay. So right away, I was like exposed to this family. I was like, who are these people? And then she also had this book of Princess Diana paper dolls, which I loved. It had all of her beautiful gowns. So I destroyed that. So I grew up knowing who they were. And, you know, we watched Will and Kate's wedding together. And from there, I was just super into it. I went off and studied art history. And again, I found myself being drawn to all of the art and the commissions done by royalty. And so learning more about them from that angle brought me to where I am now. It's just all kind of rolled up into one now.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So you really take a more, I mean, like you said, this historical approach and angle
Sort
to
of,
really, starting to understand how the royal family is navigating like present day, but versus,
Yeah, because it's easy to come at it from that historical perspective when you remember they're writing history just by like living their lives. And for better or for worse, these people in these very privileged positions, like they're upholding this institution. It's 1,000 years old. They're also just people, and we love the drama and the mess and the scandals and all of that. And the good stuff too, of course. So it feels like there's just so much to chew on with the royals, however you want to approach them.
It's so true. And I'm curious, one of my first questions was is why you think there's so much interest and just intrigue. It's almost like some people can't get enough. And I'll say, like, I'm sort of like tangentially interested, like I get it from social media. I check out what you're posting, I've got like, I get the headlines sometimes, but, I wasn't necessarily watching the whole wedding, that aired. So why are people so just fascinated?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a thing in America where we don't have anything like the royals. We have the Kennedys, but like that's not the same level. But we kind of crave, I think, that fairy tale and that otherworldly aspect to the royals, where they exist in this like sphere that is completely separate from all of us.
Yeah.
And then you remind yourself, oh, they are kind of just people. So I feel like there's this fascination where we want to put them in the box of being celebrities, but like that's not quite right. And it just, it just like brings people back over and over again. And those big cultural moments like the royal weddings, they remind people of like all of the magic and the pomp and circumstance and the things that the monarchy like has to offer and kind of what they're riding on right now. I think it's just like they're relevant enough through those big moments that they kind of sustain themselves into the future. But like, even if you don't follow them, even if you're not reading all of the news, like with a magnifying glass or something, you know who they are. Like, you know who Queen Elizabeth was, you know who Prince William and Kate are. Like, they're just these figures that, they like cross the line from everyday people into like something bigger than us. And I think that's fascinating for people. For me, definitely.
Yeah. No, it is really interesting. And you're so right. We don't have anything like it here in the States where there's no monarchy, there's no royal family. We have celebrity culture and influencer culture, but it's like the crown is different.
It's something else.
It's something else. Just look at the amazing, huge success of The Crown on Netflix. Like, it's just, such a big show.
Yeah.
And we people know what's coming.
No, exactly. You do.
We're
but
still
people
watching.
Never get tired of hearing it because we want that window into their world. We want to peek behind the curtain because it's that curtain that separates us that like keeps the magic intact, right? If you get to know the royals too well, I feel like we wouldn't feel the same way about them because we would know too much. But like part of the fascination is how we're able to romanticize them because we don't know them as people.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that could translate to, what do you think, to celebrity culture as well,
for sure.
Kind of influencer culture. Yeah, it's like, it's really interesting. It's almost like they create their own form of content or public persona that is very aspirational. There's something there that is, you want to peek behind the curtain. It's like you see the extravagance, you see the castles and the palaces. And I think the next question I want to ask is how you think they navigate the world of social media too. Whereas before there was traditional media, really just the press, which they probably had a very good hand at knowing what was coming and had some control over that. But now with social media, it's very, very different. So how do you think they approach that?
Yeah, I think it's an evolving space for everybody, but like for the royals especially, social media is so tricky because, like you said, the media, the press, especially the British royals, they had a very good handle on it. They knew how to manage like expectations. They knew how to kind of control what would get in the press over the years. And I mean, even that's changed now because the news cycle, it goes so fast. Yeah. But social media is different because it's like a give and a take. You put stuff out there, you get responses in return, whether it's comments or just like people consuming and sharing or whatever. Yeah. So there is sort of this this like back and forth, this relationship that happens when you use social media. And I think the monarchy, the royals aren't used to that. It's a very like democratizing space where they open themselves up to, yes, responses that are positive, to a lot of support, but also like some negative stuff and some critiques. So that's got to be tough, like on a personal level. And, you know, just royals individually, I know some of them have social media, some of them don't. Like King Charles doesn't even have a cell phone, like doesn't have a personal phone line at all. But like Prince Harry, I've heard, has a secret Instagram. So they're navigating it like on both ends of the spectrum at this point, which is another reason I find them so fascinating, because some of them are like still clinging on to that old way of the world working and the old way of doing things. So they have that choice whether to evolve or not. And some of them are and some of them are not.
Yeah, it's a choice they make. It's interesting because like in more traditional media and not that long ago when you really had the press or just a few channels, kind of the nightly news kind of thing, it's like I feel like they were probably very much crafting the narrative with their own voices, with their own interviews, with their own pictures. Whereas now it's like they're not necessarily they're the subject of focus, but they're not necessarily they're not the creators behind it.
Yeah, and they'll tell you that that's not the case, that they have no power over the press or never did. But like, it's just not true. In the past, like there was no access to Buckingham Palace unless you got official approval, unless you got the go ahead. Otherwise, you could forget about ever getting your foot in the door ever again, you know, if you published something that went against what they wanted in the press. So today that's something that continues to be like a pretty hot topic when it comes to the royals, is how they navigate the media. But yeah, social media is a big part of that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I just think about, the most recent royal story that comes to mind for me is like, where's Kate? And the way the internet went, I mean, I was checking your channel, your page, like every day, like for the updates, because I knew also from you, I felt like this very neutral, unbiased, like, hey, these are the facts, but I'm not here to necessarily speculate or feed into the gossip, but this is what I see and this is what I think is happening.
Right. Yeah, that's where I always try to keep it. That was so wild, that moment in time when we were all going crazy over Kate. And it's just like, she's at home, she's recovering. Because at the end of the day, they are just people. And we want to believe that the royal family is like capable of these big, scary things. But would they be able to get away with that? I don't know. But yeah, like I said, it's that peek behind the curtain. We all want the inside scoop. We all want to know what's happening. And the interesting thing about like that social media frenzy was it did very quickly take on a tone of like questioning her relationship and like her marriage and asking whether William had done something to her. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that was quick. We got there quick when that conspiracy started popping off. So yeah, there's something about royal relationships too that we love to pick apart. Which I don't think is quite healthy, but I understand why it happens.
I agree. There's an episode of Flirtations out that's about how I wanted to blend these themes of social media, but traditional media, of reality television, of dating shows, of celebrity culture and influencer culture, and how like like, because we all exist within these systems, economic, political, cultural, religious. I think entertainment and media certainly serves as a system. And so we're all living and operating and dating within these systems.
Yeah.
And to think like it doesn't have an impact over our own dating lives, it just does. It may be subconscious at times, but like,
For
I
sure.
think it does. Mm-hmm.
I think it does too. If I can go off on a non-royal tangent really quick.
Yes.
I haven't watched the most recent season. I'm not caught up, but I love The Bachelorette, like the classic dating show.
Yes.
And there was one season I was watching and I was like noticing people putting on masks, right? Like they build these personas for these dating shows that are very, very close to their own personalities, but not quite. Like they don't give everything away because they're very aware that they're on television. And I think to an extent with social media, we've started doing that in our own lives too. We build these personas. And I mean, the royals do it too. They put on masks for the public that I'm sure are nowhere near their real personalities, but we would never be any the wiser because we can't know them that way. So I think there's so many parallels in, like you were saying, influencer culture, media in general, dating culture. It's just like a fascinating time to be alive and grappling with all of this.
It's so interesting. I agree. Because even if you're not on social media, you're still going to be impacted and affected by the trends that are happening. And like the reach of social media extends outside of social media, and the same for traditional media too. It's like, I think all of these things have, it's just impacted the way we live our lives and make connections.
They creep in.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. They seep into your, like, whatever you're consuming online. I've found myself doing it. I'm very happily in a relationship. I'm engaged, but on TikTok in the past few years, there's kind of been this, I don't want to call it a trend because it's more like a conversation, but there's been a lot of discourse about, men not showing up, whether it's for their wives or their partners or whatever, women talking about how on Mother's Day, they had to plan everything, or he forgot my anniversary, and all of these ways that modern dating and romance fails women. And, I'm very happy in my relationship. I know this, but that creeps into your brain when you consume all this content and you start to question your own reality. And it's just like, it's very insidious. And I'm noticing myself like having these like topics kind of on the top of my brain. You do have to take a step back and like separate yourself from what you're seeing online when it comes to your own life.
Yeah, it's really important. That's a really good it's a really good point to make. Oh my goodness. I am glad we opened up with talking about that and just how the royal family is showing up on social media, and just how social media and media in general, specific to the royal family even, can impact the way we date and just create these maybe expectations that we may place upon ourselves in our own dating lives. And so now I have an official icebreaker question for you. And that is, if you could go to a party with any royal, past or present, if you could pick one, who would it be and why?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I hate to give the cop-out answer, but I feel like Princess Diana just would have been a really fun girlfriend to have. Like, she had her issues, but like we all have our issues, and just getting her on a girls' night out, I think would have been so fun. Helping her through whatever she was working through, making sure she had a good time. I think that would be like a blast.
Oh my gosh. I would love to go to that party. Yes, please.
Yeah.
So much fun. And so the variation of that icebreaker I'll ask myself is, if you could go on a date with any royal, help me out with it. Is there a single duke, somewhere on the island?
The pickings are slim. I think the last like very eligible duke just got married earlier this summer. And he was like a billionaire too. So sorry to have to be the bearer of bad news.
So he was stacked. What was his name?
Oh my gosh.
Duke
he was
something?
the Duke of Westminster. I forget his actual name.
That is close enough. Duke of Westminster. Okay. So I would have been the other Duke of Westminster? How does that work?
Yeah, it's Yeah, queer relationships and the royals are like a very poorly discussed topic because we don't have a lot of precedent for that.
No.
So I don't know. I don't know if you would have been a duke or if it would have been like a first gentleman situation where we would have invented a title for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a question that's like going to get decided eventually, most likely.
Yeah. Do you think that's just history and tradition, maybe religion is part of it, culture, why you haven't seen?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because so much of the British peerage system, the title system, is based on patriarchy, and it gets passed from eldest son to eldest son. So these titles are built in a way where you have one man inheriting, and then there's a title that goes to his wife, and that's it. There's no questions asked. Like there's no kind of deviating from that system because that's how it was set up. So yeah, people ask me sometimes, like, what would happen if Prince George or Princess Charlotte, like they wanted to be in a same-sex relationship? We don't know. We don't know because that question's never come up in a way where it's been like seriously considered.
Right.
And I would be fascinated to know the answer, but it's so hard to even make a guess because it challenges the system itself that has like given these people these titles. So at the end of the day, it's all made up anyway, but yeah.
It is. But yeah, there's no precedent. And now that you mention it, there really has never been like a Mr. and Mr. or a Mr. and Mrs. or Mrs. and Mrs. There's never.
Yeah. I mean, there have been queer royals. Yeah, there have been queer royals. There is a cousin of the current British royals. His name is Lord Ivar Mountbatten. He's married to a man, but I don't know if the husband has a title. You know, it's just one of those things where it's never been, never been a question that's seriously been considered in like the main character part of the royal family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. My next question, and this is from your perspective. What have been some of your famous or your most favorite royal romances? Maybe one or two couples or even scandals, something like that. A royal romance that has just captured your attention.
I mean, I love not in England or the UK, but over in Austria, the story of Empress Sissi, and I always forget her husband's name, but she married the Emperor of Austria, was not meant to be the Empress, so she was like not very good at it. But from all accounts, they were very much in love, and he was like originally supposed to marry her sister, but once he saw Elizabeth, they called her Sissy, he was just so enamored, and he said, "I want that one." And you know, they had a bunch of kids together. It's kind of a tragedy. She does get assassinated at the end of her life, but she made the best of it, right? So, and she has this legacy of just like leaving love and beauty everywhere she went. So she's always fascinated me. And then, I don't know. I have to say Harry and Meghan for a modern royal romance because that's a relationship that kind of breaks the precedent of royal romances being a little bit volatile.
Yeah.
They just seem like their energy is so like good and healing on both sides, which we love to see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And since you mentioned Harry and Meghan, what do you think about their break from the crown?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like when you look at the royals and their history, it was a long time coming because Harry is, you know, at the end of a very long line of royals who did kind of do everything the way they were supposed to be done, and regardless of like the toll that took on them personally. But you know, Harry and Meghan, people will talk about how, you know, the royal family was very accepting of Meghan and they made an effort to include her, and it was never enough. And I call BS on that. I don't think that's the truth. And I think Harry and Meghan on their own side, you know, they tried to make things work. They tried everything they could think of without compromising on their own values to stay as part of the monarchy. But at the end of the day, it's an institution that asks people to kind of sacrifice pieces of themselves. And that's not something that it seems like they were willing to do. And they don't have to, you know, he's not going to be king, most likely. So I think, you know, good for them for choosing their own peace, their own like mental health over, a system that can be like very I mean, cuckoo bananas some of the time when we talk about the royals. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think are some of the ways a royal may date? What do you think that process of courtship like? Is it really rooted in tradition? Yeah, like how
yeah. It's such an interesting topic because, over time it's evolved. In the past, I mean, until very recently, royal marriages were kind of chosen by the family based on how like beneficial it could be to the monarchy. Like Queen Elizabeth and her husband Philip were kind of the first in the British monarchy to break away from that.
Okay.
And she was really young when they got engaged. She was a teenager. I think he was maybe in his early 20s. I'm not sure on the exact ages, but they were cousins. The family still approved of him. I know. That's the other part. They don't marry their cousins anymore.
No, not anymore.
But back in the day, that was a tradition because you kept it in the family, and you would want to like maintain these links with other parts of the family. So like we've obviously moved past that. But like even with Charles and Diana, they kind of picked each other based on expectations from outside of themselves. It wasn't about romance. It wasn't about, I like this person, I want to spend my life with them. It's they look good on paper, I can tolerate them, guess I'll pick them. That's kind of where it was for a very long time. Obviously now we've moved into the realm of, royals are going on dates. They are meeting people. It sounds like a lot of royals meet their partners like through friends. They'll get set up sometimes on blind dates, or they'll have like somebody introduce them, or they run in the same social circles. And it's just like kind of a meet cute moment, which if you're a royal, I don't know how it could ever just be like a random meet cute, but that's how it gets painted anyway, most of the time. Yeah.
It makes sense that they're getting, they're going to their hobnobbing events. They're going skiing or whatever they do. They've got parties, socials, fundraisers. Yeah.
They're not, safe to say, they're not swiping on Tinder as much as I think that would make a great like royal romance book. I think that'd be really fun. But I think Harry and Meghan got set up by a friend because he saw her on somebody's Instagram story and was like, I want to meet her. So it's just like there are some very modern dating stories with the royals. It's just sometimes it's hard to know what's true and what's not.
Yeah. Well, who are some of the most eligible single royals right now?
Oh my gosh. Again, it's hard to know because they're so private.
They're so secretive.
Princess Margaret has some grandsons that are in their 20s that
a little young for me,
I will say. The older ones tend to like partner up and they have some baggage usually in terms of like royal scandals and stuff. But Princess Margaret's grandsons, trying to think, the Prince of Denmark, again, they're all pretty young. He's like 18 or 19.
That is young.
The next generation is kind of like entering the social scene now. So that's who a lot of, especially like media coverage of like eligible bachelors, that's who it gets focused on is like the ones who've just turned 18, which is interesting to me.
That seems so young.
It is. But, when royals turn 18, they get to go off to college for a couple years maybe, but they kind of immediately launch into their career, as it were, of like doing royal duties and making appearances. So I think right away the pressure is on for them to like find somebody, and their dating life becomes fair game pretty quickly. Yeah.
To grow fast. It's like, who are you going to partner with, and who is going to become a part of the family? Yeah.
For sure.
Tradition. Okay, so I have this question. Maybe we could focus on one of Prince Margaret's older grandsons. If you were to write a dating profile for a royal, let's say you're creating a quick bio on Hinge, what do you think they may put in their dating profile?
I think they would focus on their hobbies, right? Because royals don't usually have jobs. So I think it would be something like, I don't know, polo, swimming, cars. I don't know. Just like I'm picturing like one like buzzwords and then that's it. They don't give you a whole lot to go on. That's what I'm kind of thinking.
So they're very just short and to the point. They're not giving you a whole lot at all.
I think so. I think the burden would be on us, like matching with them to carry the conversation and be interesting. Because if you're a royal, what more do you have to do? What more do you have to bring to the table?
They don't have to work for it. I got the name. I got the title or whatever. The succession.
I hope not. I hope not. But
I hope they would try a little bit.
Be a little interesting.
Yeah. All right. I kind of have a somewhat similar, like, fun question. If you were to go to a party, back on the party theme, who would be who would be your wingman or wingwoman? Like, I mean, you said Princess Diana earlier, but something, a little bit different. Like, who do you think would be a good general matchmaker?
Like a hype man.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Trying to think. Do you mean like current royals or like from back in the day? Like,
I think everyone's fair game. Yeah. Who sort of was maybe like the Lady Whistledown of the royal family, the one like really setting everyone up.
Sure. I mean, Queen Victoria, she knew how to like set up a royal marriage. Right now, most of the royals in Europe are descended from her.
Oh my God.
Because
really?
she was like sending her kids all over Europe and marrying them off. So if we're talking like wing woman, like you want to leave that party with someone, it's got to be Queen Victoria.
Queen Victoria.
And I mean, we think of the Victorians as very prudish and like not into sex and romance, but she wrote in her diaries about how much she loved being in bed with her husband. Like, she loved it. I know. We don't think about that side of Queen Victoria, but she knew what was up. She also hated being pregnant because it meant she couldn't be in bed with her husband as much. So I don't know. I think once you got like a couple glasses of wine into Queen Victoria, she could be pretty fun at a party.
The sense of humor, some of the more personality really starts to come out.
I hope so. Right.
I would think so too. Drinking the goblets of wine, whatever they do.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever they were drinking, gin. I don't know.
Something fancy. All right. I've got a question now about royal etiquette and just sort of like, because we've talked a little bit about how we think royals may date, and that's been a somewhat of a focus here. And so, like, because I have an idea of just the sort of royal etiquette in dating, very much rooted in tradition, I think in heteronormative tradition in terms of dating as well. And so just curious from your perspective, how royal etiquette in dating and tradition has made its way into our own dating lives, or if it has.
Ooh, okay. I mean, it's a thing I think is evolving over time. Maybe more so. When we think of like chivalry, that's something that directly comes out of royal history, because you're thinking of like knights and ladies, right? So that's something we've taken out of the fairy tale, out of the storybooks. Yep. So we do have this obsession with like being very gallant and opening doors and pulling out chairs for each other. I think that's a direct association with the royals. And just when we think about like dating I'm trying to think of like the right way to phrase this. Like courting someone, right? Like doing everything above board, like being very intentional about it. That is a style of dating that definitely comes out of that. Like obsession with the royals and of almost wanting to emulate how the royal courting process works, about how those like contracts are drawn up and everything's very formal and by the books. Like I think we do have some of that in our own modern dating, where there, you can take it or leave it. If it's for you, great. If it's not, that's also fine. But there are people out there that really value that sort of formality, and especially when you're getting to know someone and you want to put your best foot forward. Yeah,
I agree. I think there's been a lot of carryover into how we date in modern day too. Like you see, or maybe you see there's sort of this trend going around social media right now. It's like, about what guys used to do for women that they were dating. And it was very much these very grand gestures. And like, I get the trend. It's like, I don't think anyone is riding up on horseback to like carry you away in a carriage to your first date. Probably.
Right.
But the intention behind it is, I mean, most likely. You never know. You never know. I mean, I do like to cosplay. I might do it one of these days. But the intention behind it is like, because like, where did the chivalry go? Like, where did the courting go?
Yeah.
Like, it may not look that grand, but my gosh. Yeah.
Like some standards, please. Yeah, I don't know. I think like society in general has gotten a little bit more casual. We don't have as many almost like walls up between gender and social class anymore. You know, back in the day when that was the system, things were very divided. You couldn't date outside your social class. You couldn't I mean, your parents had to approve of the person, right? So I think that was part of it. They were trying to put their best foot forward, not just to sweep you off your feet, but like to sweep your dad off his feet so that he would give his blessing and his approval. So I think as that part of society has kind of relaxed, like majorly, for many people, so have those dating trends. And there are people trying to bring it back, and I hope for the right reasons. You know, I hope it's because we don't want to return to the days of, those very strict social classes and needing the dad's permission to even like hold hands with your daughter or whatever. But I think that's where it kind of fell off.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I like to see a little bit of traditional courtship come back. It's like, I think what has, like, if you're meeting people online and you're on the dating apps, like that has replaced a lot of the courtship, as you may spend perhaps a little bit too much time getting to know someone. And it's like, almost like, I still want to see, like, save it for the first date. I still want to see, right, like the confirmation and the follow-up, just like out of respect and out of consideration. That's really all of it is. That's really all it is. It's just consideration.
Oh, definitely. And action and what you're going to do when you're in the room with somebody, because we do spend a lot of time talking now in a way that it wasn't possible in the past. You know,
right.
If you want to take it way back to the days of the knights,
the carrier
and the ladies,
pigeon,
right? It was writing letters and waiting 2 weeks for it to get to that person, and then you'd have to wait 2 weeks for a reply. Like, it wasn't possible. So you had to move quickly. You had to be intentional. You had to be bold. You had to take those actions. And I think a healthy medium. You know, you do want to get to know someone, make sure that their values are gonna align with yours. Make sure that you can have a conversation with them. But I think getting in the room with someone is very valuable, and it does sometimes get lost in the shuffle, or it's hard to take that step and take it from offline to in person for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think I want to ask this question now. We've touched on it throughout this conversation so far, and it's just like, when I think back to royal weddings and just the crown, and like I sort of envision the monarchy and Buckingham Palace in my mind, it's like it is very much about this fairy tale. Even though, like, we know, as we've been talking today, and just how the crown was built, and that there's a lot of systems in place there with racism and xenophobia that you mentioned at the start of the episode that aren't noble at all. And I think they're starting to acknowledge that, I hope. And like, what do you think about that?
In terms of like dismantling the fairy tale, like specifically with relationships, or just in general?
I didn't fully finish the question, and then I started to go into another one.
It's a big question.
The question was about, because it really creates, I mean, I think of like Disney movies, like it's just this, it really creates this modern day fairy tale of love and romance. But as we've been talking about, learning about today, is like, when it gets down to it, when it gets down to real life, like, yes, they are navigating dating in a very public way, romance in a very public way, with tradition and history at stake, and lots of rules and a reputation that maybe doesn't completely transfer to the way we date, though I still think there's a lot of commonalities. But this idea of like this,
it's, I mean, not to bring it back to Meghan, but like, I think that's what she was expecting, right? The fairy tale, the image that is projected is very wholesome. It's very shiny, but that, when you look behind the curtain, isn't the reality. The institution, it's built on so much more than that. And it relies on, like you said, those systems to uphold it. And getting a look at that, like right off of trying to have this like beautiful fairy tale experience, it can be really jarring. So I think as those systems get dismantled, we also take a harder look at the fairy tale and the fantasy, and we realize, oh no, it's just people. It's just, people working for a business basically. And some of these marriages are strategic. Some of these relationships are genuine. But what the public gets to see is still in that realm of fairy tale and fantasy. So it's a really interesting thing to grapple with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so like, we'll be talking about them for forever. Like, I don't think
job security for me. Yeah.
Honestly, truly. And it's so interesting for many reasons. Like whether you're interested in sort of the romance, the fairy tale aspect of it all, or like the systems in place or the history, a combination of all of it, the castles, or like just all the connections and the relationships. There's so much to find interesting. And I've got just, I think two more questions here, and one of them is if there's maybe any funny stories, like an interesting tale from Buckingham Palace that maybe we don't know about.
Oh gosh, put me on the spot here.
I can ask my other one first.
Yeah, go ahead, because I'm gonna think, because I know there are some, but like they're completely eluding me right now.
My other one is like, I conclude with a little bit of a royal scandal that stands out in your mind.
I think, gosh, I mean, just Charles and Camilla, like in general, is always on my mind, because right now they got crowned at Westminster Abbey. They won in terms of, if we're talking about a fairy tale, but like back in the day, that was not guaranteed. There were literal tapes leaked of their private conversations, of Charles saying he wanted to like live in Camilla's knickers, which like that's a lot for the public to hear, especially when you're when you're supposed to keep this like distance from the public. That's a lot. So I think we forget like how quickly things have turned around for them. Like it was never guaranteed that they were going to make it, and here they are. Like
here they are.
Not saying it's a love story that we need to like all go and emulate, but like at the end of the day, they made it work.
Despite all the odds.
Yeah, definitely. You're asking for funny royal love stories.
Yeah, something interesting or something humorous, like a dating mishap or like marriage mishap that maybe stands out in your mind from the annals of royal history.
I keep coming back to the British because they're just, that's who everyone thinks about and talks about. But like Charles and Diana too, we always think about as having like this doomed romance. But like actually in the 80s, I think they tried to make it work. I think they were a little bit into each other. And there is one story of them being at home at their estate together. And they were in bed, like rolling around, doing what you do. And Diana's like foot, she like kicked apparently one of the security like alarm buttons that's underneath the nightstands in their bedroom. And like security comes rushing in. They have like their guns drawn. They think somebody's just pushed the panic button, and they come in to the room, and it's just Charles and Diana in bed together. And no Charles like apparently yells at them to get out. And I think it's a funny reminder, like, we're all just humans. We're trying to do the best we can with like the hand that we're dealt. And even Charles and Diana, who like had this very tragic story, we all know that ended really poorly. They had some fun times, I think. Yeah.
It's all right. There's your dating mishap. The royal family. Wow, this has been Amanda Matta. Thank you so much for being on the show today and
having me.
This conversation with us about royal insights, royalty. My only last
thing is... It's a lot to chew on.
I know, it really is. I think the Flirties, and I really gonna enjoy this episode. I know I've enjoyed recording it with you. And my only other question is just any other words of wisdom, insight you'd like to share, and where the Flirties can follow and yeah, follow along on the journey.
Words of wisdom as a royal historian: don't marry your cousin. We don't do that anymore. But I mean, if you come away from this episode and you think, okay, like my dating life is rough right now, but at least I'm not a royal. Like at least I'm not going through that, then fine.
At least I'm not a royal. That's a good takeaway.
I think so.
Sweet.
Yeah, you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram. It's at Matta of Fact. And I also do have an art history podcast. It's called Art of History, where I get into some royal stuff, but also just dive into artworks that I find fascinating and use them to tell a story from the past. So that's my passion project.
I love it. I will have all linked in the show notes below. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a blast.
That's a wrap for this episode of Flirtations. Thank you for being here, for listening. What do you think? I had so much fun recording this one with Amanda Matta. Thank you to Amanda for joining us for this episode today. If you want to follow along and get all the tea, all the backstage, behind the scenes, all the stuff that's happening over there in Europe, or maybe you're listening to this in Europe, hello. Follow Amanda. I absolutely love her content. It's fantastic. Yes, thank you to you so much for listening. I invite you now to please rate, review, subscribe the show. Leave me some comments, a piece of feedback. Yeah, I'm very interested in always hearing what you have to say, as I look to bring you fun, insightful, inspiring, just overall helpful and supportive episodes as we're out there flirting and dating, because Lord knows this ain't easy and we can't do it alone. We got to do this together. Thank you so much again for listening. My name is Benjamin. I'm the Flirt Coach, and Gay Libra signing off here at Flirt Headquarters. I'll see you over on the socials or in the next episode, maybe right now. All right. Happy flirting.